What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 170 of the ARC Junkies Podcast. Today I'm talking with Mashall Whitney, owner of Raum Furniture in Houston, Texas. He runs two different shops. The first is an ASME pressure vessel shop, and the other is a custom furniture shop. Today we're talking about how to price out work, and Mashall gives us a couple trade secrets to help him out developing your material takeoffs and setting the price for your work so you don't lose your ass starting out. Before I go any further, I want to give a huge shout out to all the donors that supported my welding competition on Saturday. Every year, my school, Valencia College, and my local AWS section put on a welding competition. This year, we had 4 different schools in the student division and some employees from about 5 different companies in the open class. We had some great prizes to give away to these young men and women who took first, second, and third place in their division. Without the donors, we really couldn't have put on the competition, so I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the American Welding Society, Valencia College, Everlast Welders, Rockmount Research and Alloys, ISOTUNES, Lincoln Electric, Miller Welders, CK Worldwide, Mechanics Gloves, Up and Smoke Welding Apparel, Strong Hand Tools, Black Stallion, Roberts Oxygen, and Surplus Steel. Thank you all for the support. The winners were blown away with all the cool prizes from the various supporters. Today's episode of the ARC Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Go check out their website right now, everlastwelders.com. They're coming out with all kinds of great welding equipment. The Wireless Nova foot pedal is still open for pre-order, and it has a 100-foot range. The battery lasts over 40 8-hour shifts and can be charged up to 300 times before needing to replace the lithium-ion battery, and swapping it out is a breeze. You can order yours right now for $329. And while you're on the website, check out the new Cyclone 200E MIG welder. I'm loving this machine. It's very reliable, easy to use, runs great, and the LED screen is crystal clear. And if you're looking for a TIG welder, the 255 EXT is my go-to for all my AC and DC TIG projects. I've been using this machine for quite a bit, all the repair work I do for my side hustle, and it has performed flawlessly thus far. And if you pick up any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, make sure to use code word ARCJunkies in the comment section at checkout, and you'll get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch. That's a $100 value. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. They make some great welding electrodes for maintenance welding, repair work, and hard facing. But they also make some great abrasives, burr bits, and chemicals such as anti-spatter and cold galv as well. I've had the chance to use these products, and they perform just as they said they would. If you're a mobile welding and repair or maintenance welding business, I highly recommend checking out their full line of products at rockmountwelding.com and see what products are right for you. When I first heard about this company, I thought their products were too good to be true, and boy was I wrong. After welding a file to a piece of carbon steel and not getting any cracks or undercut, they made me a believer. Having the ability to weld unidentifiable and dissimilar steels together sounds impossible, but it's not. You need to check out their Brutus line because that's exactly what it does. And what's more, it's rated for 125,000 pounds of tensile strength with 35% elongation, which makes it perfect for machines that generate high vibrations. Get the job done right the first time with Rockmount Research and Alloys. Don't forget to check out Brad Fraser's website, hourglassfab.com, and get on his pre-order list for the hood hooks, torch holders, and cable management pucks that are dropping soon, as well as the tape measure holders. You can also check them out on Instagram at hour.glass_ingenuity. And one last thing, if you're enjoying the ARC Junkies podcast, please swing by iTunes and give me a review. It helps out a lot. And if you know someone who might enjoy the show, please share it with a friend. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the ARC Junkies Podcast. Helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
Hi, Mashall. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I will admit you are one of my longtime welding idols, so this is a big day.
Really? That's pretty interesting. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I've been keeping up with you for quite some time, and much to my surprise at the Outlaw Leather party, I was whispering to my wife, is that him? Sure enough, man. So,
oh, cool.
It was great to meet you.
No, it was great to meet you down there. I mean, we had a good time over there. I didn't realize the whole time we were sitting there that, you're the one that built the bar that's in their new studio.
Yeah.
Because they kept saying Raum,
fluke.
and I was like, I don't know who the hell Raum guy is. And then when you introduced yourself, you were like, I'm Mashall Whitney with Raum Furniture. And I was like, oh, Raum, the guy that built the bar. Because that's kind of where we hung out the majority of the time was right at that bar. And I mean, you did an excellent job on that. I was checking out all the welds and, the footrest that goes around the side of it and all that, and like all the different designs you got in it. It's really well done. You did a great job on that.
Hey, don't look too close at all that, man. I'm no master welder, but we try.
Right. So how'd you get your start? I mean, how'd you get into metalworking and furniture?
Well, I'll back way up. I graduated school as a mechanical engineer, and I didn't really ever do that. I wasn't a good engineer by any means. You couldn't catch me doing calculations or anything. I kind of tended more towards operations management, I guess is how you call it. I worked at the railroad. After that, I worked offshore, and then I found myself building refineries. And that was a pretty good time back then. Oil was up. Refineries were booming, and I worked on site, and that's how I got into really nerding out about welding. That's when I found you, and learned. I set up the shop I was at with ASME, and we became a coated pressure vessel shop, and I learned how to do that from scratch. And I'll tell you what, man, as a mechanical engineer, you don't learn that in college. They don't teach you that stuff, which is a crying shame.
Yeah,
I mean. I came into it. What's code? What's 516 grade 70? What's the difference in all this? Who knows? I read those stinking books, and there's a lot of them, and they're thick. And I had a background in construction, mainly residential, light commercial, in high school and college, and I got sent out to site to erect these modular refineries. And one day on the job, project was going pretty bad. And I left. I left the company, and I got a job offer by one of my subs, the mechanical contractor who was doing all of our welding, a lot of hydrogen piping, so a lot of stainless out in the field. And they offered me a job, and it turns out I really couldn't do it because of non-competes with the incline and all that stuff. And I was sitting at my sister's house, and said, well, what do I like doing? At the time, I'd kind of picked up woodworking as a hobby. I said, well, I like building stuff. Maybe I'll try to build furniture. And in that time, I had met a mentor at the lumber yard, and he took me in, man. I brought some beers one weekend, and he showed me how to do everything. And I went every weekend for 2 years, and he showed me how to be a good woodworker. And I took all that and combined it. And I had a really, when I first started, I had no clients, right? Like everyone. It was just me. I didn't have a job. And I turned to my local maker space. And I know those are getting few and far between these days, but I started teaching there. I taught woodworking, and I taught TIG and stick welding. That's what I knew how to do. And through that, I actually met my first customers. And that's kind of how I got in the furniture game, man. And it's gone from there.
Do you guys have like a pretty big maker space down there in Houston? I mean, you're in Houston, right?
Yes, sir. Back then it was big, and now it's massive. I don't really know how well they're doing or what they're doing financially, but I was able to rent a little corner in the back for $200 a month. And I had access to all the welders, iron workers, all plasma table, the things that I needed to get started and make me look big, by my customers like, oh, I can cut your logo into that table base. And, oh, really? And really I'm just renting the tools. And that's kind of how I got going.
That's pretty, I've seen a couple of those in Iowa, and I always thought that was a great idea. I want to check and see if we have some down here in Orlando when I have the time, which is something that's a rare commodity these days. But I think it's really cool for people to get involved with maker spaces. I mean, they've got 3D printing and CNC plasma and water jets and routers and like woodworking, metalworking, anything you can get into. I mean, they're building robots, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I would imagine each maker space is a little bit different, but you can learn so much, and then you kind of build a little network of people that are like-minded individuals. They're doing the same stuff, and you kind of help each other. That's exactly right, man. It's the network that you get there, and you'll run into I'm obviously weak on, let's say, electronics, but you know what? You hang out there. I'm actually in a buddy shop right now. He's an electronics guru,
And so we work together. We've been working together for years. And he's one of my biggest vendors now because we incorporate that into our projects. And so, yeah, the network's key that you get at a place like that.
Yeah. So have you found that like when you set up you said you're ASME certified, right?
Yeah.
So when you set your shop up, I mean, what was that process kind of going through, knowing absolutely nothing and, getting set up as an ASME coded shop?
And it's kind of the same in terms of that network where you obviously, it's expensive. You got to buy the books. You've got to do all the weld procedures, get them proved out. You've got to set up that quality manual, but you can actually lean really heavily on your insurance agent, which for us was the Hartford steam boilers. I know a lot of guys use like ABS and some of the other big Lloyds will insure you, but you lean on those guys because it behooves them for you to make good pressure vessels, right? If you're putting out crap, they're going to get in trouble and owe a bunch of money to someone. So they're there to help you every step of the way. And they do.
They want you to get certified.
Oh yeah, man. That got us over the hump of figuring it out and figuring out the paperwork. And then it's just a matter of, you're going to screw up like any inspector. They're going to come in there, look in your books, and they're going to find something. And then once you kind of learn that, just like any other inspection, whether it's for paint or whatever, that guy's got to get paid to find flaws.
Yeah.
And you just work through it.
Got to justify his job.
Yeah, man.
I'm getting ready to do something kind of similar. We're setting up to become an accredited testing facility through the AWS. So I just submitted the QA manual this morning, along with the supporting documents, the application, and all that. And I gave them 4 potential dates. So now's the waiting game. Now I find out, when are they going to come in and do the audit? And so we have to kind of prepare for the audit. And I'm kind of wondering what questions they're going to ask and what all we're going to have to do. I know we're going to go through the QA manual and all that stuff to make sure everything's up to snuff and it meets all the different, the various codes that that's kind of requirements in that. But I'm interested to go through this process and see, how everything works, how it's laid out, what they're actually looking for. I think we have to run an actual weld test while he's on the facility or while he's in-house to make sure that we're doing that right. So it should be pretty fun. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long time. We now have the opportunity to set up an accredited testing facility or have a need for it because there's like nothing in Central Florida where there's an accredited testing facility. Like the closest one, you got to drive to, I think it's Jacksonville or Pinellas County, which is like either, pick your 2.5 hour drive. You want to go north or you want to go west. So that's the hard part. So, but I would imagine it's kind of similar to, what you went through with the ASME because they have to come into your shop. They're going to inspect everything, make sure all your tools and equipment are up to par, make sure you get a manual that states, exactly how you're going to do things, the various procedures. So, it's a rough go at it.
Dude, man, I actually I consulted and helped a shop in California in Bakersfield get set up for pressure vessels. And that was more tedious because I really wasn't involved in the front end, but I was there in the back and they wanted me there when they came and got audited because I'm supposed to be the expert to answer any questions, right? And we were doing our weld test and we were rolling out. It was a hardwire root with, I believe, a dual shield filling cap. And the welder had just come in because like most shops, you fake it till you make it in the beginning, right? We didn't actually have employees because you got to get stamps before you can have projects, before you need employees.
Yeah.
So we hired in a rig welder. I don't remember what he was doing, but he set up the polarity wrong on that hardwire root and it just looked like garbage, man. He couldn't figure it out. We're all embarrassed. But the inspector, he's like, man, this stuff happens. It's cool. Be sure to check your procedure, look at your machine. But they're pretty cool with all that. And they passed us. Once we got it fixed, they passed us.
So did you have to consult like local CWIs and everything to kind of go through your procedures and get all those set up?
I've had a hand in writing a bunch of procedures on my own. But initially we use a CWI. We used our local testing facility because the same way they want you to get qualified. That way they can come inspect something.
Oh, nice.
And then they'll give them to you. And you know how, let's say procedures, once you're in the welding game, kind of get traded around, especially vendor to customer. So even though we were a vessel shop, we also subbed out like big stainless vessels. Let's say people that had sub arcs and things like that, they would send us procedures if we needed them. and we just rewrite them for ourselves, qualify them, and get on down the road.
Oh, nice. I know a lot of places, like, because you're supposed to have a WP or a PQR to tag along with the WPS and everything. And a lot of people are really hesitant about releasing their PQRs and WPSs and all that stuff, especially with like welder qualifications, because they don't want somebody else to have it. Like it's some big secret, and like most of the information you can find in your local consumables book as far as like what amperage to run, the wire feed speed. So it's not a secret. All the electrode manufacturers and equipment manufacturers, they put that stuff out for free in PDF format on Google. So I don't know why everybody's kind of like hiding it,
Yeah, and even to the next level, you take that and you get it started, and then you call like your local rep. I know back then Praxair helped us a lot. They have a welding guru. I'll never forget, his name is Richard. If you're still out there, hey Richard. He came into our shop and helped us do all that kind of stuff. And then same thing, Miller brought us down. They'll hook you up and like, hey man, tweak your procedure like this. There's so much help out there that you shouldn't be intimidated to get all that going.
Yeah. That's the one thing I've always liked about the welding communities. People are kind of willing to help, especially if they've been through something similar. They're willing to help. Like I had a couple people, when I was going through my QA manual, they're like, hey man, I'll just send you a copy of ours and you can kind of pick what you need, look through it and kind of see how it's set up and everything. So that was kind of a big help, setting ours up. And I made contact with Gerald Austin out of Tennessee, and that dude's just a wealth of freaking knowledge, and he helped us out like big time trying to put that together and, get everything ready to where I was, confident enough to be able to send it off. So I'm not getting a whole bunch of rejects and reworks before they even get to the facility.
Yeah, man. And like you said, I think a lot of people have been in it long enough to realize it doesn't actually hurt me to help you. I mean, there's a lot of work right now, not a lot of pressure vessel work right now that I've seen, but as far as welding goes, man, it doesn't hurt me to give you a procedure so you can make some bucks, And
then later on down the road, I've got a new contact. You have a new contact. I can, if I can't handle the workload, I can call you up and vice versa. Yeah. You build that network, you build that community.
Yep.
And there's enough money out there for everybody. That's what that's the thing. Man. Especially now, it's like after COVID, everything's like open and wide up. Well, I know it is in Houston, and Florida's pretty much the same. So, I mean, were you guys affected, by having to shut down? Or did you have to shut down at all for any given amount of time? Did work slow down?
My shop, half of what we do is commercial interior stuff like bars and restaurants. That's a pretty good way to say it. So that work died. I did a lot of work towards the beginning of COVID where we would like basically winterize restaurants, take down anything that could be stolen. So we'll do some field work that isn't welding just because, talking about the welding business, a lot of guys are really going to like it if you can wrap your arms around an entire project. Maybe that involves painting some or doing whatever. So we do that. But that work died, just flat out died. I had a lot of big projects we were bidding on that just got the cord yanked out. But since December, dude, that money's been pumping in. I don't know what's going on. We're building like crazy now. So
no, that's good to hear. I know like a lot of people, they shut down and they're not opening back up. Yeah. And that's what sucks.
Yeah. So a lot of weld shops went under. I've seen that.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, like a lot of the work dried up. And then so what are you guys doing? Because that's kind of the premise of what I wanted to talk to you about today as far as like bidding work. How are you, like you set up your business. How do you know what to start charging like when you started your company?
Oh, man. I started out like, I didn't have big welding jobs at all. I had somebody need something fixed and all that. And I knew that I wanted to get out of that repair type of game because that can suck you in, and you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel in pricing. And honestly, man, I didn't know what I was doing because the project I worked on, refineries, everything's expensive. And you just slap a big number out there because you can, because who else is going to do it? Mm-hmm. Well, that's not so in architectural welding type stuff. I mean, sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it is, but I remember I got my first big job was building a public artwork for Rice University. And something I've learned, dirty little secret, is that big scale artists don't build their own artwork. People like me, people like you build it. We get a set of plans, and I watched a video that I believe Jody put out about how to price your welds, and it was $1 a tack and $1 per inch.
I remember that one.
And that's what I did, man. And I'm not going to say I lost money. I made money on it. It was my biggest job yet. I think I charged $11,000. And that sculpture was 200 foot long, used 6,000 tons of steel. And you're probably sitting here thinking, oh my God, you didn't charge enough. And you're right. I mean, I didn't. It was a ton of work, but I worked day and night for about 3 weeks, but we got it done, you know, and since then you learn. That's when you learn. Like, I got a little more advanced in my pricing models. I guess I can walk you through it. Sometimes I get the plans. If it's, say, a restaurant by a bigger company, they're going to hire an architect. They're going to give you a set of plans, or a skid. I've done a lot of pump skids and things like that. They're going to give you the plans because their engineers have done it up. And then you do what we call material takeoff. So you just sit there and you write down. Sometimes you got to do it by hand. Sometimes they'll give you a cut list or whatever, but how long of each type of material you need. Then I'll take that and I run it through what I call the optimizer. And it's actually free. It's online. I don't remember the exact name. We can throw the link up. It's by Jonathan Overholt, I believe. And you punch in how long your beams come, how many of what cut length you need, and it'll optimize how you need to cut them and in what order. And I'll tell you what, brother, when I started using that, I started saving 20% on my material. And then I'll write all that down in Excel. Old school, type it in manually every time. And that gets me what I call my cost of goods sold. And then I summarize all that. I add it all up. And let's say it's $5,000 various steel. And then as you get to going in business a little bit longer, you start to realize what your monthly nut is to cover. And I call that my overhead, you know, and I attribute that now to a daily cost. So let's say it costs $150 a day to run Raum. That pays my rent, pays my insurance, pays the light bill, pays my Wi-Fi at the shop, and those monthly bills, right? I'll take that and I'll then this is where the guesswork happens. I'll say this job might take me 6 days to weld. So my daily rate, my daily overhead times 6 days, blam, put that in there. And that's kind of your true cost of this project, because now you got to bid. You got to figure if it takes you 7 days, it's eating more on your overhead. Your material hadn't gone up, but all that other stuff goes up. Okay. Then I'll throw in contingency. And that's what I call your whoopsies.
You like your oh shit factor?
Yeah. I try to start at 10%. If it's a high value material job, you may raise that up a little bit, or you may lower it down. If you have slim margins, then you know it's competitive. Then I'll add in the magic number, which is profit. And I usually will start no bones about it. I try to I'll put it in at 20% and just see what it looks like overall. And you adjust that profit left or right, up and down until you're happy with that number. And I go from there, man.
Now, when you're doing your material takeoff and everything, are you compensating for consumables as well, as far as like hardware, gas, grinding wheels, contact tips, electrodes, all that stuff?
For the high value jobs that are small, I do. So we do some aerospace work now because that's a booming industry in Houston these days. And I got real fortunate. I actually dated a girl that turned out to be the procurement officer at a space building company. But that stuff has real costs and it's expensive. And I do that, but a bigger job, that's a good point. I figure that in my overhead. I know that I burn, 100 grinding wheels a month, and I can divide that out and know my cost. Same for gas and consumables. I now have enough data to know that a shop of our size uses this much per month, and it really doesn't matter. So I kind of take an aggregate of that and pop it in that overhead.
Right. That's pretty similar how I used to do everything, as far as like old school, run it through Excel. Do a material takeoff, figure out how much linear feet I'm actually going to need. I didn't know about the optimizer though. That's pretty neat.
Yeah,
and that just figures out the best best type of or best length of cut per item so you can maximize the amount of material that, or so you can minimize the amount of material you have to buy, but maximize the amount of material you're going to be able to use out of what you bought.
Yeah, man. These days, that's critical, right? Like, used to steel was 55 cents a pound, and it was that way since 1955. Now, you can even see $1 a pound on tube material or more, and if you're not maximizing your cuts, like I said, I think I saved 20% on my material costs. And it's weird. Like, we print out the list, we have them on our saws. I train all my guys on how to read that list, because you'll cut your longest to your shortest, right?
Yeah.
That's what screws you up. And now you're doing this, I'm cutting a piece for way over there, that part of the skid, let's say, and now I'm cutting one way over here, and your mind doesn't get wrapped around it, but just filter that out and do the cut list. And you make fewer mistakes. Another thing I'll do with the cut list is we'll run the bandsaw, and I'll have my guy in the cut list. I pre-add an inch to everything, and I'll have them run it through the bandsaw, and they cut exactly to the number. That way, no one's like, well, last time we added half an inch, this time we had just cut to the number, right? And I'll add an inch beforehand in the cut list, and they'll cut everything straight and square on the bandsaw, or straight and square as a bandsaw will do, right? We'll gang cut or whatever. Then we move over to, we use a Evolution 15-inch dry cut saw. And that's how then we'll cut our angles, and we'll set up stops, and you're doing one more cut, but you're actually faster in your cut days. So we'll do a cut day, and we'll cut everything for the whole project and lay them out, number them. And it's fast, real fast, actually. So
it's a good way to do it. So you cut everything out, piece mark it, and then when you go do your assembly, you just start grabbing the correct piece and dropping it in the slot.
Yeah, a lot of furniture type things, there'll be square tube with double miters on it, miter on both ends. So we'll just run through and then miter everything of every tube that's in that pile. Then you can go in and set a stop up, slam that already cut miter against the stop, and cut your other miter dead on. And it just really speeds up the process. And I always tell my guys that if your miters are dead nuts on, your fit up's going to be faster, your welds are going to be faster, and so on down the line.
So do you guys do like a lot of custom work, or is it like a lot of repeat, same thing? We got this one company that this month they need 30 of these, and next month they're going to need 20 of them, or is like everything kind of custom?
95% of my business is custom. So the most we've ever done until recently of any one thing is 10 pieces. So yeah, man, whether it's our design or someone else's, it's all custom. So that's why we have to be kind of fast and versatile in our cutting, I guess.
Now, have you noticed like a huge increase in like material costs have gone up? I think steel went up this year $440 or $440 a ton, and the price of 2x4s are freaking ridiculous. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and he said the average home cost, at least here in Florida, they're adding an additional $26,000 just in additional cost and everything. So, I mean, is that the addition in material costs lately as far as like wood and steel? Do you see like a big impact in your company with that? I mean, as far as like work coming through the door, or?
Yes and no. I get a lot of hesitation. I'll tell you, I kind of attribute it to when I was young, man, I was kind of nerdy, and I read these books. They're black and white and they're hand drawn, and it was like how they built the pyramids, how they built castles. And I remember thinking those pyramids, they had umpteen million slave labor building them, but they were opulent. They were made out of 40-ton stones or things that we can't imagine nowadays. But they didn't pay for the labor, and they may not have paid much for the material, but I imagine they paid some, right? Mm-hmm. Well, forever and ever and ever, that's how it was. Labor was cheap, material was expensive. And now we're seeing that flip-flop. Manpower was expensive and materials were cheap. And now we're going back to that Egyptian time, I guess, where I tell my customers my material prices are encroaching up onto my manpower prices for the first time in my lifetime, and probably for the first time since the Industrial Revolution. And that's scary. That's scary as a small business, scary as a custom fabricator, because now my job is to be an educator for my customers, to teach them that this is how it is. This is the new normal. And when you start talking about it, and then usually immediately you'll get a story like, oh, my neighbor's building a fence and it was $10,000 this year. Whereas before in your head, that's a $300 fence.
Yeah.
So people are understanding business is slower, but what I'm seeing again is that commercial money is now pushing in, and those things have to happen. People are dependent upon that thing getting built to make money, and it's unfortunate, but this is the new normal.
Yeah. And it sucks, man. Like, we went through the same thing because, like, we're trying to outfit a new school. So just trying to get, like, bids on equipment. It's like, hey, this price is only good for 15 days, and then we have a price hike coming in. It's like, damn, you guys had one last month. And then same thing with material. It's like, okay, I can quote this today, but, it's probably only good for 5 days, whereas before, you can get a steel quote or aluminum quote, and it's good for 30 days. Mm-hmm. And consumables are going up. Everything seems to be going up, like, drastically. Like, my buddy, he's trying to buy a pre-manufactured metal building and get it put on his property. And then the company he gets the bid from, he looked at, the amount of time the quote's good for, and it was good for 24 hours from the time he received it.
Ooh.
And, when you're talking about a steel building, I mean, that's a pretty significant deal. When it's from one day to the next, the price is going up.
Man.
I was trying to get a quote today for sheet metal, a pan and break, and a new saw. And they're like, okay, I can quote you the saw. The equipment changes, or the equipment cost isn't going to charge or change much, but I know you need me to quote your freight as well. The freight quotes are only good for 24 hours. How do you want me to list that in the quote? And I was like, I mean, is it going to fluctuate that much? And he's like, it's a good possibility. Like, lately we're only able to quote per day because the cost of fuel and, everything else is going into it. And it's just getting ridiculous.
Man, yeah. I think one thing that's helped us is I got some pretty good suppliers, and they are sending out emails telling you about the market, their market predictions and all that. And honestly, I bundle that up and I send it to my customers. We send out a little newsletter and say, hey man, here's what's coming. And I'm not trying to pressure you to buy something, but things are going up. So if you're planning on thinking about it, do it.
Get it now.
It hurts dropping those big invoices on people, man. I think Randy said it real well the other day on your show about how he's not a salesman, so he approaches it by I'm a guy that uses this stuff too.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good to charge a lot of money all the time. Sometimes it does,
yeah.
But man, it hurts when you see normal people trying to get something done. It's high.
Now, do you do like residential work as well, or do you do one-offs for like the average homeowner or anything like that, or is it pretty much strictly commercial?
We do, as you can imagine, one-off steelwork and residential is rare and not for the average consumer. And what a big lesson for me as I've done this business is I'm kind of a DIY guy. I'm more prone to just making it than buying it or whatever. And I see like, oh, you want a pergola in your backyard. Like, why would you pay someone to do that? I can weld. Mm-hmm. And I have a welder and all this stuff, and like everyone listening, but there's a lot of people that don't, man. And they buy things like that. But typically they're very expensive. And so it's the high end type guys that the big homes that buy that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So like more commercial type stuff, restaurants, bigger buildings,
more commercial, or very, very wealthy individuals that have done well for themselves.
Okay. And have you noticed, because I mean, like you said, you got a degree in mechanical engineering. Has that helped you along your way? I mean, I know you said you weren't really doing anything with it. You tried not to crunch a whole lot of numbers, but was there some stuff from, going to college and getting a degree and everything that's kind of helped you out as far as like mindset in your business, or, the way you bid material, or the way you conduct jobs, or, the way you have to, go through codes and paperwork or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it did. I was not a good student. It took me 2 victory laps to finish. I almost failed out once. I did drop out for a long time in the middle. And before I just kind of found my place in it all. But I will say I don't have any regrets getting that degree. weirdly, it adds a lot of validity to my business, especially when I'm dealing with people that, you know how it is, man. Some people look down on the trades.
Oh yeah.
And when they find out that they're dealing with an engineer, they just feel more at ease for some reason. And really all we're talking about is just welding some tube together, not hard. But that's helped a lot in that. And it did give me a lot of discipline that I needed to learn in doing Excel. I became an Excel guru in college, and that's helped me a lot today. I did very poorly in CAD design in school. In fact, I dropped out of that class. I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I sat down and learned it on my own via YouTube using Fusion 360. Here's your plug, Tom, my sales guy. That I taught myself it at night. And that's been a big help, being able to draw, because then I can take a design or a logo or something from a customer and I can get it laser cut. I can get it water jet. I can do those things that the average guy with a grinder and a drill press can't do. And that's helped a lot.
We'll be right back with the rest of the show, but first we're going to take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by AHP Welders. These machines are great for anyone looking to try out welding, but you don't want to break the bank doing it. For under $1,000, you can get a great running machine to practice at home, tinker around in the garage, or do a little bit of welding as a maker. Check out their full line of machines today at ahpwelds.com and get a free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch with any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal when you use Arc Junkies in the comment section to check out. We're also brought to you by Strong Hand Tools. They make some of the coolest products around to help you with fabrication needs. I'm currently running the Rhino cart with the 66-piece fixturing kit, and honestly, I don't know how I went this long without a proper fab table. Strong Hand Tools keep your parts in place, speeding up productivity and increasing your accuracy. Check out their full line of products today at stronghandtools.com/ArcJunkies. Now let's get back into the show. That's one of the things, like, that if you're gonna operate a small business, one thing I would say is maybe you don't need to go to college to get a degree, or maybe you can get it done through the YouTube University, or even what's that new platform, Skillshare. You could hop on there. I don't know what they charge for that, but anywhere where you can learn Microsoft Excel. I've found that to be such a freaking powerful tool for doing all my bidding, invoicing, writing procedures. It's just a very powerful tool once you kind of get the hang of it. And there's stuff on there that the people at work, that they have degrees and all this stuff, they can make that thing do, whatever they want. They can bend it to their will. But Microsoft Excel is just, I use it all the time. So if you're out there listening, that's one computer program you should probably jump onto YouTube, learn how to use it, because you can optimize, your business and all kinds of stuff with that.
Amen, man. And I've recently started using Google Sheets. I think it's what it's called. It's not as good, not as easy, and I'm not as familiar, but it's free. If you can't afford Excel when you're starting out, it's free. Use it, man. Like you said, I had to learn accounting on my own. I learned it from books that I bought when I started this business. Simple books. I need to email you those links, man. They were great for me. Not that you need to be an expert accountant, but you need to know when you're getting screwed.
Yeah.
And Excel will help you with that. And you may think you're making money, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not. I got to quit buying crap on eBay,
Yeah, guilty. Yeah. I see new tools and I'm like, I need to have that too.
Yeah.
I got a garage full of it. But no, I mean, those are, powerful tools are simple. I don't want to say simple to learn, but I mean, with enough time at the keyboard, watching some YouTube videos and stuff, you can get pretty proficient with it. And I think getting into reading Accounting for Dummies or something like that, or kind of keeping yourself proficient on the tax codes, especially because it's changing so much. Before, what you could write off today, you can't write off. I think they did away with the entertainment deal. So if you took a group of clients out, you could write that off as an entertainment expense because you're doing business. And I think they pretty much got rid of that. And I think meals are only 50% now of what you've actually paid for them. So staying up to date and, making better financial decisions, because you kind of understand what you can write off and what you can't, and, trying to keep your business on the up and up, because last thing you want to do is get caught up in an audit and all your books are screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that tax man, He doesn't mess around. I'll tell you what, man. I'll be honest. It was a few years ago. I was broke and I couldn't pay my sales taxes to the state of Texas. And man, they came real close to putting a lien on me and all that. And it turns out, honestly, when that time lapses and you forget about it, also that's another big problem, because I get hundreds of emails. I get tons of junk in the mail all the time, and I forgot at that point. But luckily, if you're respectable to them and decent towards them, man, they made it all go away. I paid my bill. Luckily, I come into a job, paid my bills, did all that stuff, and it all went away. But that tax man, you cannot let him not have his money.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, that's another big thing I've seen in the welding community that it saddens me, is a lot of guys out of business from owing taxes. And they always tell me, I wish I would have taken an accounting class or whatever. And I didn't hire an accountant until I was in my third or fourth year of business. Wish I would have done it sooner. Mm-hmm. I've always owed money until I hired that accountant.
Then you got to figure out what what you can and can't get away with. And they're like, hey, you get a tax credit over here and you can write this off. And, this isn't going to go against you and this is going to help you out.
Amen, brother. They're a resource. And then that's part of your network. My accountant introduced me to my insurance agent, who introduced me to my payroll person. And they're all small business people that live in my community. And we call each other all the time. And I'll even say, my insurance guy, I'll tell you what, insurance is something that I've learned. They're there to make money off of you. Mm-hmm. And you pay insurance, for you guys want to start out, you pay insurance on your projected revenue. That's how it works. Your general liability is, you say, I'm going to make $250,000 this year. I need insurance for up to that. And then let's say you only made $125,000 that year. You still paid all that extra. A good insurance agent, is what I've learned, will tell you, leave some money on the table. Mm-hmm. Let them audit you, but keep some money back in case they do. And there's all those little tricks that these guys will help you with when you're small.
Yeah, you can always pay more, but they're not necessarily going to give you a refund if you didn't use it all.
He said they will never give you a refund.
You can always bump up your premiums. Halfway through the year, you'd be like, hey, it looks like I'm going to make more than I anticipated. Let me go ahead and up my insurance.
That's a beautiful point that you made, is you should do that. You got to talk to these guys.
You can always call and get extra covers. They're more than happy to sell it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. In 3 days, they'll have you written up.
Yeah. And that's the one thing, like, I like what you said about like keeping small businesses, because that's what I use. I use like a local accounting firm right here in my hometown, or not my hometown, but like the town where I live. And it's great because it's 3 ladies in there. They all know me by name. But the cool thing is they all know that like I'm a welder. So I went in there and I got my taxes done. And the lady that does my taxes, I've known her since I was probably 7 years old. I just keep going back. She's always worked over there. And but the ladies that work there, they've found me work. Like they call me up and they're like, hey, I got a client that's going to call you. They need, it's a landscaping service and they need some work done on their trailer. Okay, no problem. Send them over. I do a job for that guy. That guy says, hey man, I got another buddy that runs, this business over here. He needs something done. And you start picking up business that way, just because like your network, even though my network started off with an accountant, I've, found 3 jobs from my accountant just because I was doing business there. Because you got to think about it. Your accountant in your area is also, not only is she doing the accounting work, or she doing the accounting work for your small welding business, but they're also doing the accounting work for this restaurant over here that needs fryer baskets done, this landscaping company over here that needs trailer racks and custom stuff like that. This heavy equipment company over here that, they just broke some tines on their auger or whatever, or they need some hard facing done, So, they can put you in contact with other small business owners to help you out and, get you more work.
That's it. That's absolutely right, man. And I'd say take it another step further. You've got a network, and I'm bad at that. I'm kind of shy. I don't talk very loud, which I don't know, maybe a problem right now with the mic, but
I can always bump it up.
When I started out, I started going to parties. I went to events, put myself out there. Outlaw Leather, that was me reaching out to them. I said, hey man, y'all are in Houston. If you need something made, let me know. What do you know, man? They needed a bar that week. And here I am.
Really?
It was, Yeah. Yeah, man. Power of Instagram. I reached out to them. I had some ideas, and turns out they needed stuff. There you go, man.
Yeah, you can't predict that.
Yeah, and I went to the party, got invited, even though I'm a goober, met you. Now I'm on the podcast. I mean,
it's networking. It's all about networking. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm pretty introverted. Like, I don't go out of my way to talk to people because I don't want to feel like a dumbass. But that's just me. That's how I've always been. I'm silent until you get me talking. Then you got to pay me to shut up. But it's all about building that network, getting involved with things. And I've tried to. I know that that's one of my areas of weaknesses. So I've kind of put myself in positions to where I have to talk to people and I have to network. So like when I went to different AWS events and stuff like that, you network with those people. The section meetings, I get to talk to all these people all the time from different walks of life within the welding industry. So we have something in common. And you can pick up work, you can develop relationships. I've made great resources because like aluminum, writing codes and stuff, or not writing codes, but writing procedures and testing procedures for aluminum, that's not an area that I'm strong in, even though I'm a CWI. But guess what? Within my network, I got a guy on my phone I can call right now, and he'll be able to answer any question I have about, doing aluminum, whether it's TIG, MIG, whatever. He's got the answers because that's his area of specialty. And when he needs help with other things, he can call me. It's all about building that network. Are you involved in like any small business associations where you're at, or like, I guess, Chamber of Commerce or anything?
I'm not, because they kind of rub me the wrong way. They immediately call you and they find out you've been in business for a year. They want to give you an award if you send them $400.
Oh, that's nice of them.
Yeah, I was like, no, but what I did start doing pre-COVID was in Houston, and I think a lot of places, there's these small business like startup groups, and they'll meet, and they'll, like, the one that I really had a good learned a lot from was a presenter talked about a book of, I think it was about your business, and when you're at that crux to grow a lot, or you can kind of stay a one or two man show. And the premise of it was, don't be afraid. You can either be rich or you can be king. So you can be rich, but you're going to have to give away equity because you really don't have anything else as a welding shop, right? Or you can be king and make all the decisions and have no one to talk to you about, but you may always be small. And I learned a lot in that program, but there's a lot of those kind of things I used to go to. Same way. Guy sitting next to me owned a heavy equipment company. Guess who needs welding? That guy right there in that chair.
Yeah.
All the time, man. And along those lines, just as a little tip, I got some pretty nice business cards, I think. I've never handed one out where someone didn't say, that's a nice card, man. Where'd you get that? Invest in that. That just puts that thing in their mind, I think, because we need to be seen as a creative shop. And that card is the first impression that we have.
Is that the leather one with the bottle opener built into it?
Oh no, that's just a thing we do, but we have a card that actually, the card feels like leather. It's paper. It's a great card, and it really wasn't that expensive, man.
Mm-hmm. I was when I first started my business, I was like, man, I'm a metal worker. I'm into steel and stuff like that. So I'm gonna get metal business cards made. And I checked the price on them, and I was like, man, this isn't going to work right here. Maybe one day when I'm making the big bucks, but yeah, metal business cards, no, sir. I think they were a couple bucks a piece, and I'm like, man, I got to pass these out on a regular basis. So I just went to Staples and got some made up, and I mean, they were pretty high quality. I mean, they weren't like anything to like, they're pretty decent. But what I did is I got the, right in that area where all the business cards they've got like these peel and stick magnets that are the exact same size as a business card. So I sat there one night and I took like half the stack of business cards and I just peeled them off and stuck them together. And, as I passed them out, now people have them on their refrigerators or wherever at work, nice. So they're holding papers up with my logo and my business card. So when they need something welded, oh yeah, this guy does welding. Because most business cards, they end up in a drawer or, somewhere else with the rest of them. They're not seeing it. It's not always in their face. So anytime you can build like a type of business card or something functional that they can kind of keep around, they see it all the time. And I think I've generated some business that way too.
Yeah, I like that, man. That's actually a good idea. I've tried exploring other little handouts and gimmies, and I got a really nice notepad from my aluminum supplier. Beautiful thick paper, I priced those out. They're like $10 a piece. It's like, oof, that's not for me right now.
If you're selling aluminum, it is.
Yeah.
Especially with the material costs.
Aye.
So how do you go about like marketing and advertising your business, kind of getting the word out there? Is it just word of mouth or repeat customers? I mean, how do you go out and drum up new business, especially now that, like you said, a lot of shops, they shut down during COVID. They're not coming back. So how do you kind of replace that, that revenue that you were making?
Early on, I've tried a few things. Early on, I advertised on Yelp. I don't even know if Yelp is still around.
Oh, it's still there.
It paid for itself. I'll say that. In fact, I probably made 3 to 1 for every dollar I spent there. I got it back threefold.
Really?
But what put me off to Yelp was I had a run in almost with the FBI from a scammer, and they sent me fake checks, and I didn't know any better. And I went to the bank to cash it because something felt weird. And normally I just take a picture on my phone because I'm a modern man and all that. But I went to the bank, and turns out it was fraudulent. And they're like, we're reporting this. We need info and all this stuff. And that was kind of the end of it for me with Yelp, even though it worked. Mm-hmm. But the thing I've noticed with advertising is it also will increase your workload of weeding through the crap. You're vetting jobs now, and you'll get a lot of people because we also do furniture. I get so many people saying, I need a couch for my daughter's dorm room. So I get this call. I say, well, ma'am, we're a custom builder, and I don't think you want that. No, I need a couch. I said, well, IKEA's down the road. It's on I-10 over here. And you just get people that aren't serious about what your product is. And that takes a lot of weeding out. Now I use Google to advertise. That pays back pretty well. I had a lot of small business friends tell me that I needed to do it, that their business just exploded when they did. That helped me a lot with very narrow focused things. So one thing I did on our furniture side was like beds. And Google, and we're like number 1 for beds, custom metal and wood beds in Houston. That helps a lot on that, and that does pay back probably about the same, 3 to 5 to 1. I spend, full disclosure, probably around $15 a day. But I got a report yesterday. I get 45,000 impressions a week on just furniture hits. So it's worth it if that's what you need to do. And I know it's hard when you're small to shovel more money out the door that you don't have. I would say that's something that's probably worth it.
Now, is that something that you kind of figure on your overhead now that you're doing marketing and advertising, stuff like that? That's another monthly I got to pay in addition to the lights, the Wi-Fi, the water, consumables, all this stuff. Marketing is part of your budget now. It is part of the budget. I also figure in marketing like giveaways, little products that we make and sell. We give away, I don't know, 20 or 30 a month of those to things like the high school welding competition Saturday. Donate some prizes. Not a big deal, but that's all figured in. And I budget that. I budget this much money to do that. Another way we market and advertise is our industrial side, which is what we call Raum Industries. And that's all our heavy welding stuff. I don't really market that. In fact, we don't even have a website. I'll be honest, man, we got started in that I had received to my shop a shipment. I forget what it was. It was like some valve actuator. It's weird. Like I don't need this. And it was addressed to the former tenant of my shop. And my neighbor came out, and my neighbor builds food trucks. And he said, man, I need some good karma. I'm going to track down who this belongs to. And he did. Turns out it was the largest IPO company in like 2018 or 19 in Houston. They raised like $45 million to start a biotech pharmacy. They came over to my shop. I had some 4-inch Schedule 40 3/16 stainless pipe welded out. It was a little spool, no longer than a foot long. And it wasn't me. I wish it was, but there's some beautiful rainbow weaves on that thing. And they said, you weld pipe?
said, yeah, we do. We can weld pipe. And we built that whole plant for him.
Damn.
Just like that.
Just because you tracked down like his mail.
Tracked down his mail. They were new. They didn't know anybody, and they needed pipe.
Nice.
Just like that, man. And through that, we actually did work on another biotech plant, and we're working with them now to expand their facility. So it's small world, man. You just do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Do the right thing.
No, that's freaking awesome, dude. I mean, you wouldn't think of it like just doing something nice.
Yeah. Yep. My neighbor needed good karma. That was it.
So now, like when you're pricing your stuff out like that's one thing that a lot of people that I don't think they understand is because you, as a business owner, you have a charge out rate for your employees. We don't have to get into the actual dollar amount, but so you have charge out rate for your employees, but then you have a salary that you pay those employees. And what a lot of people like, I remember I got pissed off when I was doing structural steel iron work, and I was like, man, I found out that my charge out rate for me, or just your average welder was like $100 an hour on the job site. And I was like, man, that cheap ass, he's riding around a brand new F-250 Platinum, jacked up and this, that, and the other thing. And, he's making $100 off me per hour. And he's only giving me I think I was making like $17 at the time. So I was pissed. It wasn't until I got into school and I had to take an accounting class as part of my degree that I realized, okay, well, he's not getting the remainder of that. He's got workers' comp, taxes, federal taxes, state taxes. I mean, Florida, we don't have state taxes. We're kind of lucky on that. But, you got FICA, Medicare, unemployment, all this other stuff that you have to pay into. And so he may be making like $1 or $2 off of that, So I think that's one thing that people really don't understand. And then as you get into, being a small business owner, what to pay your employees for the amount of money that you can actually charge out. And then the type of work is going to be dictated, the type of work you got coming in is going to kind of dictate the amount of money you can charge out.
Absolutely. There's always that, I'm going to call it the butt pucker factor of who are you building what for? Sometimes you can get away with more. Mm-hmm. Clear, it's pretty easy. In my aerospace customer, they expect to be charged a lot because what they're doing is so new. We did they wanted us to braze a stainless fitting to an 1.5-inch thick aluminum piece. It was hard to do, man. I couldn't put enough heat in that thing for it to take the braze. And we actually ended up convincing them to thread it, machine in threads and get machine fittings and thread them in there because it was for a vacuum test. And a lot of pushback, man, a lot of pushback. They wanted it brazed. Actually, they wanted it welded in there first. Said, I'm going to have a hard time welding that stainless to that aluminum, bro.
Yeah.
Let's try something else.
You had to go to the lab for a couple of years. I call you back.
Yeah. I'm going to invent a new metal. And got them convinced to braze. And like I said, it just took too much heat. And what was happening is the aluminum was blistering. We were preheating it. And it was just, the part was so big, it would just suck away the heat too fast. And I didn't have a way to, put it in a whole oven. I mean, this thing was like 9 foot long and 4 foot tall and huge. And speaking of this, the money that you're doing, basically I convinced them to thread this fitting because it would be a better thing. I made $0 off of that. I lost thousands of dollars doing that. Can't invoice anyone. Mm-hmm. And that's that $100 an hour that you're talking about. But you know what? Hopefully they're going to call me on the next one. And the next one we'll do some business. We'll do some welding for them. So that kind of stuff gets eaten up. And those guys realize it because what they're doing is new. You go onto a job like, man, even like carbon steel pipe is getting pretty basic these days. You got to realize you can't charge as much for that. Fencing, oh my God, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel on pricing. You get pre-made fence panels out of China for pennies, and really you're just competing on who can install them the fastest. So you have to watch out and you have to understand that part of the market. And sadly, you won't get it until you do it, until you get burned. And maybe you say that's business, but call someone, man. Call me, call you. We know, we've been there. I'll help you price it if I can.
That's the learning curve. And like right when I started my business, I had a good buddy, Bill Warren, that that was, I damn near fell flat on my face the first time I bid a job, because he actually gave me my first job. He's like, hey, I got this client. I'm too busy. I want you to go ahead and take the client. And he's like, but work up your estimate and send it to me before you forward it to him. Okay, cool. I got there and look at the job, and I'm like, I want to make $25 an hour. I think that's fair for, the work and the equipment, the tools and stuff that I have. I think that's fair. So I was like, okay, it's going to take me 8 hours plus the cost of material, this, that, and everything. And, I give it to my buddy Bill, and he looks at it and he goes, no, they're going to eat you alive. He says, here's what you need to charge for your hourly rate. And I was like, but Bill, I don't need that much money. I want to be competitive. And he's like, if you take that, he says, you're going to go broke your first year. Not even your first year, your first couple of months. You're not going to be able to keep your head above water. Charge this. And he gave me a dollar amount. And I was like, man, I was so nervous. And he goes, and take off all these details. Because I've submitted I had the invoice set up to everything that I was going to do verbatim. He goes, take that off. He goes, here's what you need. This is the job you're going to do. Just list the scope of work out and tell them what your price is. You don't have to break down every step of the way. Otherwise, they're going to nickel and dime you. So I was like, all right. And I was just so nervous. I submitted the invoice, and I remember sitting at the computer after I hit sent and just waiting for a response.
Heart
racing. And I think it was a couple hours later, I finally got the email, and boom. All right, we accept your bid. Go ahead. You can start tomorrow.
Shit, you didn't charge enough.
I was freaking out, man. No, it was perfect, because it was a repeat customer.
Yeah.
And then I started charging the same amount on all the other jobs that I was going on to, as far as my hourly charge out rate. But that kept me from going underwater, because unbeknownst to me, I was going to need to hire an accountant. I was going to have to pay for insurance. I was going to have to pay for all this other stuff. So that $25 an hour that I was going to pay myself, after I got done paying the accountant, the insurance, and all that stuff, I'd have had to get a part-time job to keep my business going.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's find a mentor.
Find a mentor. Yeah, absolutely. And but that kind of thing is tempered by when you're young and like you said, you think you're only worth 25 an hour. And that may be, hey man, maybe you're slow, but it's also hard to justify sometimes 150 an hour for some of the good stuff. But I also like to try to think of, especially in woodwork, metalwork, it's a little different, but I got a shop full of tools now. When I started, I had a Miller 211, I had a Makita grinder that my grandpa gave me, and I had an air compressor. And that was it. And for me to do something could have taken all day to cut out. Let's say I needed to cut a circle. I had a plasma cutter. If I need to cut out a circle, it would take me forever to make it nice. Now, we've got lasers, we got all this crap, and so my hourly rate is justified because I'm fast.
Yeah.
Fast to what we do. So you got to balance that based upon where you're at versus going broke versus you can't ask for $200 an hour shop rate when you don't have any tools. I see that a lot, man. And that's how it is. And man, speaking about money, and this is probably going to be a sore subject for people, but I think a big part of my job lately now as a business owner is asking the government for money. PPP, EIDL grants, the small business, all these things nowadays are my job. Whether you need it or not, it takes time, research, dedication, paperwork, Excel. You're talking to your accountants and your paychecks person, all this stuff to get this information together. But a lot of guys I know didn't do that, and they're not in business anymore. Because those times were hard, man. They were hard. And I'm not embarrassed to say I took PPP money and all that kind of stuff to keep my business going. But that is a facet of today's world that you have to be a part of and be smart about. Some of these things are forgivable money. You know what that means? Free money from the government. There's a whole spiel about nothing's free and all that, but this is a business, and this is me taking care of myself and my family also, and my employees. So that's something to think about. A lot of people ignore it, I think.
Yeah. But that's a big thing too, because you're not just looking after your business. Like you said, you're looking after your family. You got to put them first, above everything else. But then your employees, and they have families. So by taking advantage of those, systems and everything that are in place for business owners, that's why they're there, so you don't go under. And then, people that didn't swallow their pride, maybe, they're under, and now they're not working, and the employees that they had working for them, they're no longer working. So now you're not making that decision based off of you and your pride. If you got 10, 15 employees or better in your shop, I mean, think about how many lives you're affecting there. Not just the people that are in your shop, but their families as well, their wives, their husbands, their kids, all that stuff. So, I mean, to be able to keep, people working and keep people feeding their families and stuff and paying their mortgages and their car notes, so they can afford to drive to and from work and still have a job when they get there and a home when they leave. There's nothing shameful in that whatsoever. I mean, that's why those programs exist.
Yeah, man.
That's why we pay taxes. That's why the charge out rate's $100 an hour or better. Right. And then you pay all that money into Uncle Sam. So when shit goes downhill, you've got some sort of protection.
Yeah, man. I was hesitant to do it. I was like, well, I don't need this. We had an okay year. And then it stretched on. And then we weren't having an okay year. And then I did it. And I was like, man, actually, that was a huge help for us. We don't tell the government this. We bought some equipment with it. We did things and grew because of that. And it was a blessing. It was a good blessing for us. And I know a lot of people use it to grow and fund things in their businesses, but that's good for me because I build stuff, that makes the world go around, I think. So
no, it's great. So if people are interested in getting some custom furniture from Raum Furniture or the Raum Industrial side with your pipe segment and stuff like that, how would they get a hold of you? How do they get in contact with you? And then what's your social medias?
We're on Instagram. That's my main poison, Raum Furniture or Raum_Furniture. And then we have a website, and you can, my cell number is on the website. You can call me and I'll answer it, man. I'm easy to get hold of, awesome. Unfortunately.
that comes with its costs as well.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man, Definitely. It was good talking to you. Thanks for taking the time out of your day and coming on and kind of informing the podcast or the listeners about, kind of how to conduct business, get the business going up off the ground and get it moving and get it growing. Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. And it's kind of like we say here, that's just one way to do it. I don't know any other way. No, that's a good way to do it. All right, everyone. As always, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to swing by the arcjunkies.com if you're interested in picking up some show merch. All orders will come with a free sticker pack. And don't forget to tune in to Weld Wednesdays with AWS on May 5th. We're talking about putting your GI Bill and other VA benefits to work when it comes to welding. So if you're a U.S. military veteran or know someone who is, make sure to tune in and share the episode. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.